What up friends, today we're gonna paint this. What up friends, Liron here, thank you for joining me in another video. Today we're gonna paint this scene, as I said. This is a scene I already did one take on and I was very pleased with the result, but still there were a few things that I think required some better treatment. This is the previous attempt I did. And I was really pleased with the feeling of sunlight that this one has, and I like even the color selection. So I decided to do another take on that. Now what's funny, and this is the take I'm going to show you right now, is that in some senses this second take is better. I handled a lot of the things better, but I think the color selection with this one is a little better, okay? So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna jump straight into the creation process, and later on I will show you the two of those together and you can just take a look and compare. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so I'm starting with the first wash. Apologies, I do not have the drawing process, but it's a relatively simple drawing. You can see the reference in the bottom left corner. Now it disappeared, but it will be back, I promise. So lately I have just kind of changed my strategy for the first wash. As you know, I'm trying to go for a looser style, and so what I'm trying to do is just fill it up with paint and really not worry too much about what it covers, what it doesn't cover, to try and keep it kind of loose and fun, at least for the very first wash. Sometimes I will leave, of course, white highlights depending on the situation. With this particular scene, I didn't feel like I want to do that, so I cover everything with the first wash. Top is French Ultramarine, middle is Sap Green, I believe, and the bottom that I'm going to put in right now, and just after this wash, I'm just adding some darker Sap Green that has also some French Ultramarine in it. And after that I'm going to put in some new Gamboge. I did a mistake and covered the buildings on the very top left. This will come back to haunt me later on when I'm going to put in the shadows, and these whole buildings are going to look a little awkward, but that's okay. So now I'm putting in new Gamboge, and then as I go downwards I change a bit and add Quinacridone Burnt Orange. It's the one that comes in the Daniel Smith secondary set. I find this to be a wonderful paint that I really enjoy. Really surprised me. I didn't expect a lot of it, and I just really love it. I believe there's also some burnt sienna somewhere in here. It actually could be burnt sienna, though it doesn't really matter. You can use them quite interchangeably. Schminke's burnt sienna looks like Daniel Smith's Quinacridone Burnt Orange. So anyway, while it's still wet, I'm just putting in dashes of color there, dashes of the orange into the yellow, just to set the tone a bit for the next wash. That's what I wanted to do here. And then putting some pure new Gamboge at the bottom. Probably shouldn't have done this last stroke. I don't know what I was thinking. But anyway, so now everything is dry and you can see how it all kind of fades. So I'm going in back with the second wash. My plan here is to get those hills and mountains in the very background in one go, not try too much. I just added some more paint to it. This is probably the French Ultramarine and some burnt sienna. I plan to just get it as simply as possible in one simple wash, and not play around with it too much. When I think about it, again, I should have probably broken some of the edges. Could come back and just blend some of them into the sky's blue. This was actually a big mistake, and I just thought about it right now. It could soften the separation of the hills from the sky, but I didn't think about it at the time. I was so busy about planning the next part of the wash, which is the Sap Green, only stronger this time. So I'm mixing. I'm sorry that you cannot see this. I will improve this, I promise. I don't know exactly when, but I will. So anyway, I'm going back with the Sap Green here. Added a bit of more French Ultramarine to it just to get it a little darker. And what I plan on doing is to fill in that wash, and when I get to about the middle, I will start adding in some burnt sienna to it, because I want to warm it up a bit and just create some variation. So for now I'm just following that very same trying not to mess with it again too much, just to put it in simple strokes as much as possible. Now I wanted to blend a bit with the mountains, because I just want that effect. But the thing is, it's funny because I should have, again, blended the mountains with the sky. It would make it much more good looking, I think. I find that, and this is something, a conclusion I came to recently, I make mountains in the distance way too blue, and I'll try just graying them out a little more because in reality they're not that blue. So this one is relatively grayed out with the burnt sienna, but sometimes I'm making them. No, I'm stuttering. Sometimes I'm making them a little too blue, especially if I use phthalo blue or this kind of blue. So anyway, yeah, just going there, just being careful around the houses. By the way, I had this epiphany moment a few paintings ago. I measure stuff in paintings. That's my new way of living. So a few paintings ago, I had a revelation. I held the brush like I see many loose artists hold it, really way at the back. Not as extreme as the exercise I showed you a while back, but pretty much at the back. And I had a lot of control actually, and it surprised me a lot. And I do use this new grip a little more in future videos. I will use it a little more now that I say it here also. I kind of messed up, by the way, with the negative painting. I don't know what's this weird sharp edge, but I will fix it later on. So anyway, now I added a bit of burnt sienna, and I think it could have been Quinacridone Rose, one of these two. It doesn't really matter, both of them. I think it was Quinacridone Rose because it looks a bit neutralized, so probably that explains it. It neutralizes it because of the French ultramarine that was already present in that mix. So anyway, yeah, I'm trying to adopt better grips for the brush, just to keep it a little simpler, a little just looser, you know, not that tight. I actually did tight painting a few days ago, and not loose, just trying to do what I know how to do, and it just felt terrible, to be honest. I didn't enjoy it and I didn't like the result. So it seems like this is the overall trend for me right now. I hope on next week I hope to paint a lot on location and hopefully record some of that. And I think it will be really good for me because I feel like it's the purest form of practicing, because then, I mean, painting, I start to realize, is really about the message that you want to convey with your painting. You want to make some kind of a statement. I was kind of cynical towards this saying, what I just said right now, but it is true. Because if you just paint what you see as you see it, for me at least, it feels a bit boring and redundant and too many details, and it just feels like too much is given to you on a silver platter. And what I recently started loving to do is hint at a lot of stuff and expect, I'm gonna just dab this away with a tissue, and expect the viewer to sort of understand what to make of the scene they're looking at. And this is why I like the loose work so much. So I think when you paint from observation, real life, you have this sort of more freedom to change the scene as you see, and also it passes through your own filter of perception. Because looking at a picture on screen, or even a printed picture, takes away some of your ability to interpret it. I'm pretty sure it happens. I don't have an exact explanation as to why, but that's how I feel it works. So anyway, near the bottom I added a bit more red, as you can see. The wash is not as even as I may want it to, but it's okay because I'm gonna have another one on top of that. Okay, so usually when you have another wash coming on top of an existing wash, you can sort of blend all of the mistakes, or mask all of the mistakes rather, away. Take a good look again at the reference. I will put a link in the description box as well. It's just a lovely scene. I don't remember where it's from. If you know, feel free to chime in and let me know. So now comes one of the coolest parts that I really enjoy, and it is the part of adding in the shadows to the painting. And I love this part because it really will give it some of the three-dimensionality. So my tactic for this, trying to develop a looser style, my tactic is to connect as many washes as possible. I'm not painting the individual shapes. I'm trying to connect anything that I can. So you'll see me now working on the roof, and I'm using a very basic color tactic. All I'm doing is alternating between French Ultramarine dominated mix and burnt sienna dominated mix. So I'm using these two, as I do a lot, and just mixing them. So now you'll see me sort of filling in all those areas with and trying to connect as much as possible. I have some extra water and paint on that small wash on the right that I will now soak up some of that. And now for that wall, I'm slowly adding it, and I'm adding more burnt sienna because I want this to be a little warmer. There isn't a particular reason, it's more about varying the wash itself, making it look pretty. So hopefully you can see how that works. And I hope you like that effect. I really like it to alternate between cool and warm in the shadows. It's actually a key component of making a painting look good, in my opinion, and it's something that I do neglect from time to time, so I'm trying to pay more attention to that. It's really a challenge because there's so many variables there in the picture, so you know, the shapes and the edges and the warm and cool, and it's just such a crazy learning curve with watercolor, seriously. When I now sketch, it's like vacation for me. I just take my pen and sketchbook and just use pen to sketch. It's so easy compared to this that it's like it's so intuitive, it's so ingrained in me. And I would assume that you get to this level as well in watercolor. I see some artists seem to have that control. I'm definitely not there yet. For me, really sketching, the only challenge I think with sketching for me is the composition, to really create a pleasure-inducing composition, something that's really fun to watch. So that's one. And the second is maybe just how focused I am. So to just keep being focused all throughout the sketch. This is the challenge for me. It's not really about, if I am focused, I know I will get a good result. So now after thinking for a while, I did cover this small area as well. This whole part is in the shadow. You'll notice I'm not leaving that many highlights, by the way. I'm really covering a lot of the areas. We have this very special shadow on the building here. It's very interesting in general, the way the shadow and light sort of dance around the rooftops. One of the effects that I like to get the most, and something I'm quite comfortable with, I think. I have some other challenges. I recently realized that I'm still not that good at matching values. I had a painting where I did a bad job at it, and it's like watercolor really comes and smacks you in the face when you least expect it. After a few good paintings, and you're all like, yeah, I'm starting to get it, and then bam! Slap to the face, or maybe even a punch sometimes. And you can get that, you can get a succession of punches, one after another, but after that you always sort of come back to your senses. And it's funny still, when I look back a few months, I can see the improvement, so that's quite amazing. So now with this wash I'm trying to hurry because I need to connect it as fast as possible to the bottom, because the bottom's drying now. And you can't really see it because it seems like I'm working rather slowly, but I'm really, really nervous about making it and getting that top part done and connecting it with the bottom, which may have not been the best way to approach this, just finishing the one in the bottom, but still what I decided to do, so I have to go with that. The thing with vertical lines is they're so challenging. I should try and maybe rotate the paper next time because it's really, really challenging for me. I remember there was a time where pen lines or pencil lines were challenging for me in different angles, but now I kind of mastered that, or at least I'm very competent in that. But with the brush, I'm still learning how to get those lines in. For example, with the rigger brush, if I'm trying to draw vertical lines, it's one of the most challenging things for me. So yeah, so now I'm getting that beautiful shadow of the chimney. The one thing I would say I dislike right now is just the underpainting, the initial wash. I wish I could go back and make the yellow a little more yellower, a little pure, not contaminated by green or by blue or even by the orange or the burnt sienna. I feel it got a little contaminated, and it's a shame. Because you do feel it. So anyway, yeah. After this wash, I plan on making another one for the darkest darks. I kind of come to realize lately that you can finish literally every painting with just 3 washes if you do it properly. First wash is kind of the underpainting, then the second wash you add the midtones and maybe some even lighter than that, and then on the last one you add the very dark parts. And optionally you can add like a 4th kind of wash, which is not really a wash, it's more dry brush or dry rigger brush, it doesn't really matter. So it's like 3 washes and you can usually be done with it, and maybe a 4th one just for the jewels, for the small details. So yeah, you see I'm trying to get the brush strokes efficiently and they're not wasting too much movement. So anyway, this one is a classic example of 3 washes and then just a few more details with the rigger. So I have just a few more roofs to get through. I don't care at this point. For the first 2 washes, I don't care if they have softer edges or they blend together, because I know I can pull it off with the 3rd one. So you see, I don't really care that this roof kind of blends into the building behind it. It's okay. So that's something to pay attention to. I think it doesn't really matter. I also have this building in the distance that I don't even know why I left it there. I should have probably ignored it. It just... I don't know if it reads that well. I just didn't know exactly how to approach it. So hopefully it does read well, and if not, I could probably just drop it. And yeah. So in any case, I have this roof on the right, and then the 2 chimneys that I think I will get with this wash as well. Something with the color scheme here bugs me a little. I don't know exactly what it is, but something's not working for me. Maybe I should simplify a little more and avoid the burnt sienna and quinacridone burnt orange and all of those. Maybe I should just use, go back a bit to using, you know, just primaries and, I don't know. I don't know. It's a challenge. So anyway, yeah, putting in that chimney there. And this is pretty much done with this wash. I don't think I need to add anything more. So yeah, now I'm just working on that weird building in the background. And then I can start working on all of the foliage, all of the trees that at the moment don't look so good. They look kind of detached because they're too light. So the next wash is going to correct it. I'm going to go over them and really darken them. If you remember the previous version of this painting, I don't remember if I showed you the previous one or the new one in the intro to this video. But if you remember it, I showed you what it looked like, and it was a bit darker. Oh yeah, I just have to put in those shadows for the top buildings. And you can see why I said it's a shame I didn't keep the yellow pure. You see it really mixed with the green there. I wasn't being careful enough. And this is what happened. So the buildings on the top look a little green, and I think it really hurts the vibrancy, of the painting. But you know, you can't get everything perfect always, so that's okay. So now moving into that, the trees and all of that. I wonder if I could make them a little more blue in the very distance. I'm not sure if I should have or not. But overall, I'm pleased with the way the foliage turns out here. And you see I made a big mistake there that I told you about earlier, just below that last area that I painted. So this mistake will be easily corrected now with this darker wash. So this is why I say you don't really have to worry about these kinds of things. So I'm sort of dancing around with the brush, trying to leave a lot of highlights for the light to come through in the foliage, because foliage can be a little tricky. It's usually trees and bushes and forests. They're usually darker than they appear, but they do have some highlights. And these highlights sometimes are also darker than they appear, but sometimes they're lighter than they appear, really depending on the context and on the neighboring colors. I actually started becoming a freak of values. I'm walking around and I try to assess the values of things I see. And I told a friend of mine about this, and he also draws and does like graphic sort of art, not traditional, digital art, sorry. Took me a moment to remember that. So he does digital art, and he told me that it's normal and it happens to him too. That he looks at buildings and he's like, what value is darker? So I guess I'm not insane. Share in a comment below if you do that too. Help me feel normal if you do that as well. If you walk around and look at buildings and try to compare them to the sky and ask, is this lighter than the sky? Is this darker? Am I going crazy? So yeah, let me know. Am I going crazy is one of the questions I ask. So I'm not asking you this. I know it happens. So anyway, putting in just the final touches of the foliage. This is still something I think that is a weakness of mine. Or maybe I just don't load the brush enough because now the paint is a bit dry. I should have probably came back for more a little earlier. But yeah, or maybe I don't mix enough. I don't know, but for some reason my large green areas don't look as good as I would want them to. I will say they don't look flat, which is already something major because I see this as a common sort of rookie or beginner mistake, making the green washes very, very even, and it just super boring and hurts the feeling of depth. I'm gonna drink some water. I don't know why I became super thirsty while voicing over. So anyway, now I'm getting this really quickly. Just covering what's left. Yeah. So the greens are definitely not boring, and they do convey somewhat of depth. But I don't know. I guess it's just a matter of practice. Yeah. So anyway, one more look at the reference here. And I'm just going to add the darkest darks, which are basically the shadows on the chimneys, and cast by the chimneys. The under the roofs, there are some strong shadows, and on the roofs as well. And this is really the part where it comes into life and becomes really cool. Painting, man, I'm really scratching my eyes now. They itch for some weird reason. I think I'm just tired. Yeah, I haven't slept really well for a few days, and then I started sleeping well again. I went out too much in the weekend, but it was a good one, I think. So yeah, it was worth it. So now I'm trying to figure out what I want to darken exactly, because sometimes you can darken too many things, and then you kind of get lost, and it's just too much. So I did decide to darken this one, but I'm using more of an orangish color. By the way, notice the building on the right. Under the main building, there's one that's really red, and I love it. I love that effect. It has a chimney on it. There are two red buildings on the right, one in the very bottom right corner, and the other one is a bit top left to it. Really in the center of the picture, and it's red, and I love that effect. Yeah. The problem when I'm narrating these after the fact is that I can't point at stuff and show them to you if I would do this real time. So, and by the way, this really makes me appreciate anyone who does that real time. Patrick does that, I think, real time narration, and it's just really challenging. I used to do that. I think I can definitely pull it off with sketching. And I did in the past, but with watercolor it's a big challenge to narrate and do it at the same time. I think I have some way to go before I can feel comfortable doing that, and it will make the video editing much easier, I will admit, but it's going to be really challenging to produce good pieces like this, I think. So yeah, I think there's a point you reach in the medium, in any medium, that you just feel competent enough to know you won't mess up. You know you won't mess up, at least not royally mess up, but you may make a few mistakes, it may not be perfect, but you won't mess up, the result will be pleasing. I think I'm starting to get close to this stage right now. I'm on the verge of making it, and being confident in just about any painting to know that I won't completely mess it up. If I do mess it up, it won't be a complete mess up. It will be okay. So yeah, it's interesting. Very interesting. So now I have to continue. I have to connect these two because I can't just stop the shadow I did right there. So I will shade this entire area. And this area is super dark, like really dark. And actually, the lower it goes, the darker it should be. So a wiser decision would be to start from the bottom to the top. Just because the wash is darkest where you started, for the most part. But anyway, yeah, I'm just doing exactly what I did the other time. And they're connected. And the more you can connect, the better the result is. The more you can connect these washes. Because if you don't connect them, the result is going to be sad many times. You're going to get a painting with a lot of fragmentations. By the way, I found a new watercolor artist that is really good. His name is David Howell, I believe. Howell. Let me check this actually. And I found his video on, let's see, David Howell. Yes, David Howell. Check out his work. He's amazing, like really. And he does things so differently. He doesn't connect, from what I saw, that many washes. It seems like his work is fragmented more than other artists, and it still looks fantastic. So I don't know how he pulls that off, but I'm just amazed. Also, he doesn't use any drawing before painting. He just goes for it, which I find to be fascinating. He does a sketch on his sketchbook, and then he just goes for it on his watercolor paper. No guidelines, nothing, which is crazy. So yeah, I would check out his stuff. What else? Yeah, a lot of things going on now. Yeah, I'll probably move, like, officially to Tel Aviv in the following 2 or 3 days. I have everything I need in my apartment, and I can finally move. Putting in some of the windows here wet and wet, just so you can, yeah. So I'm really close to moving, and it's going to be a big change for me. And I hope I'll make it. I hope I'll survive, and I will keep sharing it with you guys. Really appreciate it. I'm almost at 7,000 subscribers. I think by the time this video is out, I may already be in 7,000 subscribers. And I just want to use this opportunity to thank you so much. It's really amazing that I can do that. And I'm really curious as to what I should do to turn this channel from 7,000 to 700,000 or to 7 million. If you have any ideas, let me know in a comment below. I'm actually curious to hear what you'll say. If you have any idea on what can take this channel to, like, really huge leap, I'm curious to know. I do plan on making a lot of content that will appeal to many more people, so like vlogging, but of course around art, kind of a personal art blog, because this is a little more mainstream, and yeah, things like this. I also plan on making in general a lot of videos outside. I'm really thinking about it, and let me know if you have any ideas. I'm curious. For now, I'm trying not to worry too much about the numbers, because honestly, what does it matter? You know, it's just for my own ego, basically. It's not like, of course it matters. Of course, I want to reach more people, to inspire more people, but it doesn't matter, because 7,000 is amazing. It's just, if I think about it, like, if I actually imagine 7,000 people, it's crazy, you know. So I'm really happy with that. So now what I'm doing is using the rigger brush. I've been doing it for a while now, but I've just been rambling on other stuff. So I'm using the rigger brush to add some final details, to add some thin lines. There's this drain pipe here, putting it in there. Could have probably just left it as it is, but no, my perfectionism insists on correcting it, because the line was a bit broken. Some shadows in the windows, but again, I don't want to put in too much, because I want to keep it loose. And this is basically almost done, just a few touches here and there. There's the roof at the very bottom that I want to get some more details on. I'm actually quite pleased with how the composition turned out with this one. I think it turned out really well. And I think that leaving that structure in the distance wasn't a mistake. I think I could have done it a little better, but it wasn't a mistake in terms of the composition. I think it was a good choice, because if not, maybe the top right half would feel a little empty. One thing that would definitely make this better is if I would blend the hills at a very distance with the sky. This could really be a good thing to do. But anyway, yeah, I'm really pleased with this. So just the bottom roof, and I think this is all the main details. Oh, we have also these two I really like the shape of this particular building. This is the one I told you about when I said red. I think it looks really good with the two different roofs. Gonna blow my nose. Sorry about that. I just think it looks really good, and it adds a bit of interest to the scene because there's a lot of gray, burnt sienna, French ultramarine. This red sort of breaks it. Also here under the roof, and here I don't want to put in too many details. I'm going really light because it's kind of at the corner. I don't want to take too much attention towards there. Yeah, just when you simplify more, you start to really get these things that you don't need to show everything in order to create an impression. You really don't. Some simple shapes and your mind completes everything, which is amazing. It's really a fascinating phenomenon. With the rigger brush, I find I have to really load it up, otherwise it doesn't last for long. It does very small kind of lines and then it runs out of paint. But anyway, yeah, this is almost done. I don't even remember if I'm going to add anything else here. Oh yeah, just a bit of details on this roof, and I think I'm just going to sign it up now, and yeah, just making these lines a little stronger. Yeah, the rigger brush really should be loaded a lot in order for it to provide a lot of paint. I think I should probably get a better one. I was recommended on getting one that's a bit thicker near the bottom and then becomes thinner, and then it has a better capacity, or even what you call a sword brush, I think, that it has one edge that's very sharp and one edge that's a little thicker. So anyway, yeah, these are all just small details, and I'll finally sign this, and then I'll show you a picture of the final painting, because the picture looks a little better. The colors are more accurate in the picture that I took from my iPhone. It was better light, and it looks just better than the video. So you'll soon see this, I think, in a few moments. Here it is. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let's wrap up. Okay friends, I hope you enjoyed this process. Here's the final result, and as you can see here, really a nice feeling of sun on the buildings, on the rooftops, on the chimneys. One thing again that's pretty obvious to me is just the way these washes kind of blended with the green. Could have been handled a little better probably. Now if you want to see the comparison of the two together, so you can see it right now, and I hope it's clear. I do think this one is a little more polished, which is the one I did right now, but maybe the feeling of warmth here is stronger. I think if you look at the mountains in the background, there's sort of a burnt sienna look, and here it's more blue, it's a little more detached. I feel like I tend to blue things too much. They're not that blue in the distance, they're more like gray, and this one works. I think this one works a little better. But anyway, both results are really cool, and I think they're just a really nice manifestation of, or an indication of the new direction I'm headed towards. So yeah, this is it. I hope you enjoyed this video and the simpler approach I tried to take with this one, and I'm really trying to apply it to many paintings that I'm working on right now. So we will slowly get some more processes and more things like this. Recently I've been feeling, and I will talk about it, or I have already talked about it in a vlog, I feel like I need to go a little more inside and really focus on my skills, and so I don't blog as much. I kind of just work really hard on the painting and sketching, and then upload the process just to share it with you. I feel like I have a lot of insights to process in my mind, so it takes some time. It's really an interesting time for me. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little process here, and I will see you again in another video tomorrow. Don't forget to subscribe, thumbs up for the video. Also follow me on Snapchat and Instagram, and I will see you again tomorrow.